As I've said, Mr. Speaker, I regret the way things happened on the evening in question, and I apologise. But if I may say to him, I do think it would be better if he waited until the full conclusion of the inquiry, until the full facts are brought before this House, Mr. Speaker, and he will then have an opportunity to put his points again.
A party? Is he serious? The Prime Minister admitting that he was caught out being photographed at a party at number 10 Downing Street. This week, on the first edition of Trainbasher Talks, we're discussing the controversy of Boris Johnson's party at number 10 Downing Street during the May 2020 lockdown. A party which shouldn't have happened, but did. This is Trainbasher Talks. In the news this week was a very controversial story. A story so big that it has shocked the nation over the behaviour of the Prime Minister and how he had breached lockdown regulations in May 2020 due to a party that was held in the garden of number 10 Downing Street. Now, at the time, the COVID legislation in place in England stated that 2 people could meet outdoors at a distance of 2 metres. Now, the rules were less specific about social gatherings at work because very few workplaces were open and staff were urged to keep as distant as possible. Now, number 10 staff were allowed to be at their office as they were classed as key workers working as national government staff. However, that didn't mean they could have socially distanced drinks where they could bring their own bottle to what they now call a work meeting in the garden of number 10. The Prime Minister has ordered an inquiry, but a previous inquiry from a previous party is near enough collapsing because the civil servant who had been ordered to conduct the inquiry was fingered for taking part in this party during the December 2020 lockdown. And what's worse is the fact that in an image shared with The Guardian, not just Boris Johnson attending the May 2020 party, but Carrie Johnson, Matt Hancock, Grant Shapps, and a number of Conservative Party members were also in the event, which was, to be honest, disgraceful.
Well, there we have it. After months of deceit and deception, the pathetic spectacle of a man who's run out of road. His defence that he didn't realise he was at a party. It is so ridiculous that it's actually offensive to the British public.
The admission of the Prime Minister being at a party happened on the 12th of January edition of Prime Minister's Questions, with Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, saying that it was a disgrace and it was offensive to the great British public, which, to be totally honest, it was. It was shocking. And then the Conservative Party wheeled out the big guns. They wheeled out the leader of the House of Commons, Jacob Rees-Mogg, onto BBC Newsnight, where he had things to say about several members of the Conservative Party who thought that Boris Johnson should go.
Actually, for very many people, this is a very serious matter. Not least your Scottish contingent of Conservative MSPs. Now, you have already said today that the Scottish Tory leader, who's both an MSP and an MP, Douglas Ross, you don't think he's a big figure in the Conservative Party. Tonight, we have been told that every single Scottish Tory MSP, that's 31 of them, the people that you depend on to hold up the union, think that Boris Johnson should quit. That, I would suggest to you, is a very serious matter.
Well, I would actually say that the Secretary of State for Scotland, who is a big figure, is very supportive of the Prime Minister, has made that absolutely clear. Douglas Ross has always been quite a lightweight figure, so I don't think that...
Ouch. Talking about your own party membership, your own colleagues, calling them lightweights. And that is Jacob Rees-Mogg on BBC Newsnight, national television, calling his own colleagues lightweights. It is beyond stupid. And yet this Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, is being supported by the likes of Rees-Mogg. Now, a poll released on the 12th of January by YouGov showed a 10-point lead by the Labour Party. 10 points in a poll nearly halfway through the Conservatives' 5-year term before the next election. So that means if there was an election tomorrow, the Conservatives would lose over 150 seats. With Boris Johnson going, Grant Shapps, then thought they'll be falling like flies.
I said yesterday, if the Prime Minister attended this gathering party event in Downing Street on the 20th of May, then he could not continue as Prime Minister. So, regretfully, I have to say that his position is no longer tenable.
You think that Boris Johnson should resign as Prime Minister?
I made that clear. There was one simple question to answer yesterday, indeed since Monday night, when we saw this invitation, which was to more than 100 people, asking them to join others in the Downing Street garden and bring their own booze. If the Prime Minister was there, and he accepted today that he was, then I felt he could not continue. What we also heard from the Prime Minister today was an apology, and he said with hindsight he would have done things differently, which for me is an acceptance from the Prime Minister that it was wrong, and therefore I don't want to be in this position, but I am in the position now where I don't think he can continue as leader of the Conservatives.
Now that was the Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross saying on Sky News that Boris Johnson should resign after admitting he attended the Downing Street Garden Party. His own party members demanding that he resigns. It's ridiculous. It's reprehensible. And his position is untenable. If you or I, any person on the street, had held a party in their garden claiming it was a work meeting during the height of COVID, during a lockdown, had the ordinary citizen like you or I done that, we would be fined, we would be arrested, we'd be up in front of the courts and possibly given a prison sentence. But Boris Johnson and his staff get away with it. It is unbelievable. Now, some people think that Boris Johnson was right to just apologise and leave it to the review. But we all know the review is going to be whitewashed. The person who is managing the review, Sue Gray, has been known to go through departments where people have done wrong and encourage them to delete evidence in order to avoid freedom of information requests. And yet she's now running an inquiry at number 10. How is that even considered equal and fair? The inquiry needs to be held by someone independent. Charges need to be laid, and the Metropolitan Police need to be arresting people or finding them. Because, as I said, the ordinary citizen on the street would be fined for doing that. But where is the politicians being fined? Nowhere.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I congratulate my right honourable friend for obtaining this question. But, Mr. Speaker, let's look around. Where is the Prime Minister? The Prime Minister should be here to answer these serious questions. Where is the government front bench? And indeed, where is the government back benches? Mr. Speaker, this is the most serious of matters, because this is the Prime Minister who has been accused of breaking a law that he himself set. It could not be more serious, and I have sympathy with the Minister, who is the fall guy to have to answer this today. The harsh reality, Mr. Speaker, is that people round these islands watch loved ones dying and missing funerals, and the PM and his staff partied behind the walls of his private garden. Mr. Speaker, on that very day, on the 20th of May, there was a tweet from the Metropolitan Police reminding people of their responsibilities. You can only meet with one person outside. The Cabinet Secretary for Culture gave a press conference at number 10 at 5 p.m, reiterating that message. There was one rule for the rest of us and another rule for those in number 10. Now, the Minister is seeking to hide behind the investigation, but let me ask the Minister, was Sue Gray one of those invited to that party on the 20th of May, and did indeed she attend? Mr. Speaker, this is a Prime Minister that has lost his moral authority. He doesn't deserve the respect and the trust of the people of these islands. And if he won't do the decent thing and recognise that he ought to resign, I say to the Minister, and I say to the Conservative backbenchers, that they are going to have to do what the Prime Minister has failed to do and force him from office, and do it now.
That was the SNP Westminster leader, Ian Blackford, saying that the Prime Minister should be ousted during an urgent question on the 11th of January. And he should. This government is a disgrace. It is offensive to the people which it is meant to serve, yet it is completely and utterly disregarded. 150,000 people have lost their lives because of COVID, and yet Boris Johnson parties like it's nobody's business. It is a disgrace. It is morally reprehensible. Boris Johnson is the worst Prime Minister this country has ever had. And that is saying something based on some of the doozies in this that's happened. He and his morally bankrupt colleagues should be forced to resign. But they won't. Because they know that they will get what they want when they want and stuff the public. 150,000 people. That is a big number of people who have lost their lives to COVID. And yet the Prime Minister will not do the honourable thing. We'll leave you with this thought on the first episode of Trainbasher Talks. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.